Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today I have a little bit of an announcement. You may have noticed it's Sunday. It's earlier. I have been thinking about this for a while because my other job is typically very slow in June. And I feel like I have been thinking about going daily again for June. So, my friends are amazing and sweet and kind and everything. And they decided to all go in together to have me fly out to LA for my birthday this year. And I feel like if the other job is slow, if I definitely need a little bit more money towards my birthday, if you guys are, willing to watch throughout June, I was like, could be win, win, win. Now, what I will say is one of the days of the week will be members. So it will be a members video still. So I'm not, don't you worry, my members. Which I think I'll probably do that Saturdays. But yeah, I'm like... So for going back to daily, which is crazy. By the way, if I totally crash out, I hope you all are entertained because I'm going to still be doing the gym, still going to be doing the deficit, still going to be doing everything, still going to be doing the other job, still going to be doing still doing all of it and doing daily. So, and it's the solstice and it's like mega fat burning time. So if I crash out, then hopefully that'll be entertaining for you guys as well. But I'm just like, I feel like I should do this. I've been thinking about it a long time and I feel like my friends basically getting me that trip, which I don't know. I feel like I'm so Julia lately. You guys are probably like, what the hell? Oh my gosh. And even I'm like, what the hell? Oh my gosh. But that's what I told you. Like, I wanted to talk about stuff like that, especially going into like the later half of this year, like kind of getting your life back and all this type of stuff and like rediscovering yourself and whatever, just things kind of post recovery. But for this time, I think we're going to go ahead and do it. I think so. I hope you guys will enjoy it. This episode is still so touchy, but I am looking for suggestions. So obviously when I do daily, I'm looking for suggestions on podcasts to do because I can kind of split them and do them throughout the days and just kind of go in a row, kind of like I did in January. I'm always looking for topics, always looking for things. So I would really appreciate if you guys reached out to me like on Instagram or even in the comments below and gave me ideas too for this June. I need to think of some type of name for it. But I don't know. If my other job is slow anyways, then why not do this one more, right? The goal is to transition eventually, so... I just feel like I'm crazy and it's going to be hard, but we love a challenge and it will help keep me motivated throughout this time. So there's just a lot of intersections. There's a lot of reasons. And I think it might be a good thing because it's also January too. January is also a time that's slow, but also January is like, it's one of those photosphere months. I'm going to do it again in January. I already know I'm going to. But next January, I'm launching the maintenance phase. That's a huge deal. But anyways, we're not going to jump that far ahead. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm nuts. I think I'm realizing I'm just crazy, period. But I'm just like, well, with some hard work, some determination... maybe I could have, a little bit more money around my birthday and maybe I'll be thin. around my birthday. Cue the look what you made me do backtrack. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, by the way, Taylor, I'm filming this on Friday and Taylor got her master's. So congrats to Taylor. Okay, I'm done. We're done with the announcements. We're done. I'm sorry. That was a while. Let's just jump in. This one is still treacherous. Okay. I don't know. I have to be careful with the topics, but we're just going to take a shot. We're going to take a chance and we're going to go for it. So let's go ahead and dive in.
And I say this because I had a really impactful experience. I was in New York. I was visiting. I went to a local deli. I was ordering my bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich in the morning. And I was waiting online. I was picking up an order for a couple of people. So like it was taking a minute. I was off to the side and a woman comes in and
I just have to point out, because you guys were talking about the infamous Jean Gate. These pants are kind of high up too. Are they not? By the way, I'm going to make those pants an emoji for members. I'm going to figure out a way to do it because it needs to be done. Those pants live rent-free on the channel. And I'm doing it.
I inferred that she must have been a regular, that she had come a lot to this place. And she walks in, and from behind the counter, they were like, oh my God, it's, let's just call her Christy. Like, it's Christy. Christy's here, everyone. Yeah. How are you? Oh my gosh, we haven't seen you. You look amazing. You lost so much weight. And they're like, it was like explosive. They were so happy to see Christy. Yeah. Christy starts hysterically crying.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Like, they were all just so happy. They're like congratulating her on losing all of this weight. Well, I overhear from her telling them that she was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my God.
And she hadn't been coming because she hasn't had the strength. And that this was one day where she like woke up and was feeling good. So she was trying to do her morning routine.
Rage.
I think it just goes to show that like even if you think your intentions are good, right? Even if it is something you perceive as a positive, like
you should just always operate on don't comment on other people's bodies.
I think the rule of thumb is if it is something that they cannot change in 15 minutes or less, don't make a comment.
Right? Like,
and why? Why is that? Hold on, I need my wand. Why would it matter? Why would it matter? Why would one thing make any difference than the other? So if somebody called out your jeans in that one episode, you'd be okay with that. But if it's your hair color, then you can't call that out. Like, it just seems so arbitrary, which, I don't know. To me, whatever. I guess she can have that opinion, but other people are going to have different opinions. I have had my weight loss pointed out multiple times in public. As I've told you guys, I'm out in the public often. So, and I live in Derry, Alabama. That's what I call it. Just like with Pennywise and stuff. I've shown you guys the sewer where Pennywise lives in. So I don't live in like a very big city or anything. And I'm known. I'm known in town. Like, I'm known around these parts. So when I lose weight and stuff, like, people recognize it. And people have talked to me about it multiple times. It's always been positive. People are sometimes impressed. Like, I've had people come up to me at the gym and been like, oh my gosh, I've seen how much you've lost and things like that. And I don't care. Call me not mid-sized princess, but I don't think that it's a bad thing to actually say something like that. I think if somebody, especially if they look healthier or whatever, like, you can usually kind of tell, But I just think it's funny because in one breath, Fat acceptance activists will say that it's impossible to lose weight. But in another breath, they'll say, well, people lose weight due to grief, due to cancer, due to illness, due to these types of things all the time. And it's like, okay, so is it possible or not? Like, is it really in your mind only possible if something bad happens? Like, and I feel like they think that this is a logical thing to say. They think that this is rational. They think that this, as Gen Z would say, eats. But it doesn't. They think they're cooking, but the meal is cold. It isn't working. It doesn't make sense if you think about it. Why would weight loss be possible in a bad circumstance, but not in a good circumstance? Does physical reality depend upon how we feel about it? Within the toxic ritualistic world, it does. It absolutely can. You see this with things like dysmorphia, right? That can be a feeling. It can be feeling based. It's not necessarily rooted in reality. But once again, I'm only here to, or not only here, but I'm pointing out the absolute delulu of what they're saying and the reality bending nature, which I just don't want anybody else to get caught up in it. I don't think that I would ever convince them with anything that I'm saying necessarily, but I just don't want them to convince you because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Can't fix your hair, can't get food out of your teeth.
You put a shirt on backwards.
Right, whatever, right?
Your shoes untied.
Yes, I 100% agree with that because same. I had a very similar situation this week where I was at a work event and this guy came.
I don't necessarily agree, but whatever, to each their own.
Came in and he greeted my supervisor that was there. And when he greeted her, he was like, oh my God, you look fantastic. You've lost weight. And she's like, and she was polite. But then I asked her about it. I was like, has he ever said that you look great before without anything, But he was like, oh no. No, I was like, that doesn't feel good, does it?
Look at her reinforcing that. So why would you say that to someone? Like, why would she say that? Why would you be like, that doesn't feel good, does it? Why is she trying to be like this weird temptress type of person, you see? Like, let me talk to you about a compliment you got and try to get you to be upset about it. So weird.
Because you could look good without losing weight, Yeah. So that's something. But also,
let me teach you how to see the negative and the positive. Let me bring you down, basically, is what she's saying. Which is really, as witchy as I can be, my magic is not always dark magic. Sometimes it is light magic. And I do like to look for the hope in darkness, too. It is one of my pastimes. I know that you guys don't always see it. I know there can be a lot of baby, let the game speak. I can do a lot of that, and I can, be on stage at the Super Morbid Eras Tour, and I can be in my rep era on there and, be a huge bitch to people in my comments sometimes when they really piss me off. But it's at the end of the day, I like looking at light and darkness, hope and hopelessness. I like finding what can be redeemed about a situation. And that's what a lot of my activism is, and what a lot of what I had to do to get out of where I was. And I think it's really, really important skill. And as I've been in the mids, I've really had to focus on it so much. I've really had to focus on seeing the positives because they're more motivating. And that's not to judge anybody who needs to use negativity, especially in bigger sizes, to get out. I definitely did that too. But be aware that you may need to change motivations throughout it. So all she's really doing on an emotional level is she's trying to encourage regain with a comment like that. She's trying to get possibly, this is speculation, but possibly a mid-sized person, to be upset about something. She's trying to reinforce mid-sized princess energy, which, if left unchecked, can lead to regain. I'll just say that. I feel like YouTube doesn't like the other word that much. But that's really toxic. You know, I have a friend who is struggling a little bit, and I told her, because she's losing, and I told her, I said, you know, sometimes in that phase you have to use negativity to push you forward, and it can be a different kind of negativity. Like, it can be like for me a year ago, I was so scared that I would never find love again and stuff like that. I was terrified. And I mean, like, I couldn't conceive how my life would be. I couldn't conceptualize it when I was tortured. But I had to use that fear and that hopelessness to go forward. But then it didn't work in the mids, and I had to change. And now I see the hope a lot more because I've had to keep going. And it's like, let yourself change. All I'm trying to say with this is, if you are on a weight loss journey, let yourself change. If you need to be more negative to continue, then be more negative. If you need to be more positive, then be more positive. But I think in general, building things is harder than destroying them. Building people up is harder than tearing them down. For example, putting light into something is more it's more rewarding than putting darkness into it, so to speak. And I don't know. Maybe it's just where I'm at in my life, like I said, and where I'm at in my journey and what motivates me today versus a year ago. Like I said, I'm not shaming anybody. That fear, it pushed me forward a year ago. Just like the fears of my health and stuff pushed me forward. So again, I don't judge anybody. But the journey changes a lot around class 1 obesity. It really does. And in the mids. So it's just something I want people to think about. Let things be dynamic. Let things change. There's always this narrative in weight loss that you have to stay the same, or you have to have the same motivation. You have to have the same diet, the same macros, the same everything the whole time. I will always say that that isn't true. You don't. Let yourself change with time. And I think in general, I would rather pour light into someone else than darkness at this point in my life. It doesn't mean that I'm above shit talk and whatever. You know, I can still be a trashy queen sometimes, I'm going to be honest. And like I said, I like offensive humor and things like that. But I think in general, I would never, ever, ever feel good about making somebody feel bad about a compliment they got. Like that's like a certain level of darkness I just don't want to be a part of. I'll put it to you that way.
Lost any weight. She wasn't trying to lose any weight. But whether she had or hadn't, like, if you have not commented on someone's body before, when they look a certain way, and then you comment when they are smaller, you're further perpetuating you are better now because you're in a smaller body.
Yes.
And what happens? Sometimes people unintentionally lose weight. And it's either because they're very sick, or they're very sick because they're intentionally not.
Shh. Silencia.
Or it's, you know, I unintentionally lost a lot of weight because I was stressed. I was going through a divorce. My dad had died. Like, you don't know why people have lost weight. And so, like, yeah, general rule of thumb, don't comment on people's bodies.
Well, I was gonna say, even if you've intentionally lost weight, like, Again,
You can't guarantee they did it healthfully.
right, you can't guarantee that, but even so.
But we can guarantee that gain was done healthfully, like, or something like that. It's weird. I think that one of the biggest issues that they face when it comes to this problem is that obesity is visual. It is a visual indicator of something. And especially super morbid obesity, it's a visual indicator of a lot of things. And it's a reality that I think they all wish they could escape. I remember when I was there, I often hated the fact that my issues were on me in a way that was so blatant and so unable to be hidden. It bothered me all the time. And I don't really live with that anymore. And I think it's because I don't have those issues, which again, like, I know how much they talk about appearance, which I was just watching Angelica today. And she was talking about, like, she's like, my appearance is the least interesting thing about me. And I just feel like when you're in the toxic ritualistic world, appearance is everything. I think about some of how I was prior to 2020, and I was so superficial. I was so shallow about certain things. I look back at that time and I think about some of my views about money, some of my views about romance, some of my views about just general social status and all these things. And it was so superficial. And I wasn't that way when I was younger. It's like the longer you stay in the toxic ritualistic, it changes you because it's such a horrible thing. And it's just so vicious to put yourself through. And it's like, it changes you, it hardens you, it makes you cold, it makes you angry, it makes you superficial. And so these types of things, they really, really bothered me. Like, I can't stand that my issue is on me, that I can see it in myself. I can't stand it. It pisses me off. And I would think about it all the time when I was in it. And it's like now, even though maybe there could be somebody who could look at me as a mid and be like, oh, you're so lazy, or oh, you're busted, or you just don't look good, or you're awkward, or you're probably the deaf, or whatever, you know? I could still get that shit now from whatever people are thinking, which, again, honestly, it's not really any of my business, to be real. Like, it's not, but it's like, people could think those things, but I don't care as much about how I look now as I did before. I do care, but I feel like I care in a way that is healthy and that makes sense. You know, when I think about certain things about how I look, it's more about like, I just want to be to my full potential, or I want to let my body be what it was meant to be, if that makes any sense. That's kind of how I think about it. Because I think some people sometimes they wonder, maybe not, I don't know, maybe I'm just tripping, but I think sometimes, I'll say this, I think sometimes people in the mids, they question about like, how will I look, or how do I want to look, or these types of things. And I feel like it's always important to think about it in terms of your own individual self and what you are going to look like, basically upon like your own individual, in your own individual way. Like, how good will being healthier look on you? It's so specific to you. And it's like, why don't we discover that? Let's think about it as discovering what that looks like on us. And I think that that's a better way to think about it because it makes you not compare so much, which is better.
I obviously, if you followed along with the podcast, you know I've had weight loss surgery. I know other people in the fat plus size community who's had weight loss surgery, and even on the forums for people who've had weight loss surgery, the experience of going from unseen to seen, the experience of never having compliments to having compliments fucks with you. And they know those people are shitty. They might be getting compliments now, and some of those people will be craving approval and work even harder to get that approval. It is still a fucked up thing, and we recognize the difference in the way we were treated at a past weight. And
I will say that going from invisible to visible, it was very harsh for me personally. It was, and it did happen. So. And I think that's the thing about these women too, and why we have to. Sorry, I'm gonna get this. I like to doodle while I do this. It's probably because of my super extremely low dopamine and weight loss, which they probably give me shit for. But anyways, I think it's interesting to think about oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm so sorry. She was talking about people's change. Oh, the visibility aspect. It was very harsh for me. But, I was saying this. We have to talk about these things in anti-FA because we can't just allow them to talk about it. Because it is true. It is real. And we have to handle these things. And I think sometimes, not always, obviously, and I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. I'm not throwing shade at anybody at all. But I think sometimes we have to be aware that some of these things are true. There probably are some cases where people are treated better. And you have to handle that in anti-FA. And you have to think about it. And how do I talk about this? And how do I talk about these things in a healthful way, because you don't want to reinforce anything. And that's the kind of stuff that I think about, which I do have the added benefit of having been through it. So I can understand certain things, but I think it honestly just goes back to this universal truth. We cannot control how other people treat us. You just can't. And that's what I had to tell myself when I had my albatross moment in August of last year. I had to tell myself, I cannot control how other people see me. And it was the last tortured era trigger I had was, I can't control if people come up to me and talk to me. I can't control how people see me. I can't control what people say about me. And it was really hard, but it was something I just had to accept. And I did quickly. Because in that time, I was just doing all the mental work of getting through these hoops of no longer having the DIS order. I had to just push forward and push forward and push forward through, because things were changing so much when I was morbidly obese that I had to let it shift in my mind. And it was difficult, but that was something I quickly had to accept. I can't control it. I can't. You can't control it. Even if it bothers you if people compliment you, you can't stop them from doing it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of survivor's guilt in weight loss that I think isn't addressed enough either. I really felt that when I got out of super morbid obesity. I felt a survivor's guilt because I realized how hard it was and how so many people never do. They never get out. But I reconciled it within my activism, which I don't know if that's a lane for everybody, but it helped me. You guys helped me feel better about that. I felt better about it because I felt like, well, I'm doing what I can. I'm doing what I can. If people don't want to listen, or if people just whatever, then I've done all that I can, because I did feel, which again, I had a very extreme circumstance, but I did feel a survivor's guilt because it's kind of traumatic, honestly. It's very hard. At least it was for me, to have that health crisis and stuff. It was very stressful. And obviously, and for me to be getting out of that, it was like, oh my gosh. And I remember at the time so funny to think about now, but I was telling people, like, because I was saying at the time, like, this is over. Like, this huge battle is over. Because getting out of supermorbid obesity, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. And doing it sustainably, it's so hard. And I was saying, like, this is finally over. This is over. And then people were commenting. They're like, no, it's just the beginning. And I was like, oh my God. And it pissed me off. It just did. I'm like, no, like, you don't understand how fucking hard this was. And then I remember I got mad because it was so much easier after I got out. And, you know, even to this day, what I will say to those of you guys who have been super morbidly obese, like, or you're on your way out, know that your threshold for WL downsizing BS is so much higher than Gen Pop. Because I had made a post today about being in the mids, and people were saying, like, oh my gosh, it's so hard, and blah, 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 blah. And to me, it's like, I get that because it is difficult. Like, I'm not going to act like it isn't difficult for me right now. It is. But it's still nothing compared to when I was SMO. It just was. It's nothing compared to it. Not even close. It's difficult, but it's not like that. And it's not even as hard as when I was morbid, to be honest. I do think it's a little bit harder than when I was obese. So, like, just class 1. It's a little harder. So, which it makes sense because most people are just class 1 and then they lose and they're like, oh, I went from this to just this. Now it's harder. So then they unfortunately tell bigger people that it gets harder and harder and harder, and it doesn't. But I can tell you it doesn't. It's not harder and harder and harder. But yes, it's not as easy as my small fat era. It is harder than that, but it's still easier than Mo and Smo. It's still easier. So have some hope.
Like, eek, it's gross. And one of the things we talked about this week is, like, how so many of these events were perpetuated by adults, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll share a little bit about my nephew in a little while, of an experience he recently had that really upset me. And at what point do people learn this? You know, we expect kids, like, you know, kids say the darndest things. Yeah. And kids say things that are on the top of their head without too much thought or filter. They don't know how people are going to think about it. And oftentimes they're saying it in a descriptive way and there's no positive or negative associated with it. And I think a lot of times our response to it matters. Mm. Adults, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, at what point do you know not to comment on other adults' bodies? Yeah. And I would say, you know, again, in my experience, a lot of people don't say it to their face, they'll say it behind their back. And, you know, whether it's...
That's true. Once again, though, you can't control it. You're really trying an impossible task. You're putting your effort towards trying to control what other people say about you, and it's just not smart. You can't always control it.
Whether it's a positive or a negative thing they're saying about their body. And that, again, if I hear you talking about someone else's body, it sticks with me regardless of whether you talk to me about my body. Yeah. So I'm clocking it left and right. And even...
Doesn't make that much sense because everybody is different. Every body is different. Again, there's this very big collective mentality within the toxic ritualistic world because you're always comparing to others, and within comparison, there's also competition. And it's not good. You need to individuate. You need to let go. It's just not. It's not. Because even within how weight is, it can be distributed differently. It can be different. It's all different. So you need to change how you're thinking about it if you're viewing it that way. If you're like, oh my gosh, if they say this about one fat person, they're saying it about every single person ever. It's like, no, they probably aren't. The way that people think about it too, like, let's say they just don't like somebody, then they're going to talk crap about it. If they do like somebody, they probably won't. It's a very subjective thing. I don't know. It really throws people for a loop. It really does. And I think that's why I do well with this, in my opinion. I do well talking about this because I'm a feeler. I really am. I'm such a feeler. in terms of MBTI. I keep telling you guys that stuff. It's really funny. I've just been thinking about it a lot because I have a lot of friends who are thinkers. And so I'm like, I literally had to explain to one of my friends, I was like, when I look at something, the emotional truth or the emotional quality of something is the first and often only thing I think about. Like, that's it. Like, that's the first thing I go to. And it's just kind of funny because we don't think about that stuff. But it's like, yeah, all this is so subjective. It's like, and again, they have a lot of introvert cringe. So it's just the way that it is in society. Like, your friend is probably not saying things about you. Probably not. Because they like you. And usually if they're saying something about someone else, it's because they have issues with them, they're irritated with them, or, you know, things like that. Or they don't like them that much, you know? It's just, or they're just critical. Like, sometimes people criticize people because they care, you know? Like, I've talked so much crap about Taylor Swift, for example. There are so many things she's done that I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what? What is she doing? Da-da-da. Like, honestly, hot Swiftie take. I was not a fan of the re-recordings. I wasn't a fan of it. I didn't like it. I don't like how she handled it. I don't like how she talked about her masters. I don't like any of that. Does that mean that I hate her? No. Even if I judge her for some of the way that she talked about it, how she handled it, you know, I'm so big into artistic integrity. I feel like she compromised it when she re-recorded. I never would have done something like that. I never would have told somebody or suggested somebody do something like that. But it's like, that doesn't mean I hate her. It doesn't mean I think she's dumb. It doesn't mean I think that she's a terrible businesswoman. I just disagree with her on something. I just criticize something she did. You see? And it's the same thing with weight too. It's like, most people do not view your weight as who you are. That's a very specific thing. It can be, you know, the fat acceptance community as a whole, but it's also toxically ritualistic. And again, even if people within that are not quite there or they don't quite fit the criteria, they are still a part of it because they're learning talking points and ideas from people within the toxic ritualistic. So the roots of it are in that issue. It's really crazy. And within that, how much you weigh is who you are.
With this week, as we were talking about it, you had a couple instances. I had a couple instances. Like, it happens all the time.
Oh,
it happens
yes.
all the time.
Like nonstop.
I went to get my hair cut this week.
For our listeners,
Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop it there. I hope that this one survives. I'm just kidding. But we'll see. I might have to edit it a little bit. I might have to actually edit a little, which... Me? Never. Anyways. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. I'll probably just continue this, honestly, because... I think her name is Elphaba. I'm Elphaba. I'm in theater class and I'm wearing a witch hat, you know? And in the mids, I get really extra and dramatic. And my friend Eric always tells me I'm in theater class. And it's like, yeah, I have low dopamine and I'm dramatic and I talk about things really, really dramatically. It's super extra and it's just a mid thing. It's just a mid-sized princess thing. I don't know what to tell you. But you guys love that I'm defying floppity. So I'm going to keep trying to defy floppity forever. But anyways, I will see you guys again tomorrow. Baby, let the games begin. Bye.